What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another fantasy football video. Today, we're going to be going over the entire Cleveland Browns situation. So looking at their whole offense and saying, okay, where are guys going? And kind of trying to break down their ceilings and floors and if they're valued appropriately. Their entire offense has changed, but a lot of pieces have changed and it's going to affect everyone. So we want to break that down. Before we do that, make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. We're going to be posting 5 videos a week for most of the summer and then shifting to about 7 videos a week towards the end of the summer. Also, stay to the end of this video because we're going to be doing a new series that you guys can contribute towards, so I don't want you to miss out on that, but I'll let you know about that at the end of the video. So, running backs. That's where we're going to start, and we're going to go in order of their ADP. First will be Carlos Hyde. News will come out of camp, who's winning the battle, or if there even is a battle, or if they're just going to straight split. News will come out. So these ADPs are going to change, but as of right now, Carlos Hyde's running back 26, going at the end of the 5th round. That's early for my liking. Hyde has been over 1,000 yards exactly 0 times in his career. He has pretty underwhelming workout metrics. He's got a very long injury history, and the Browns just spent the 3rd pick in the 2nd round on Chubb. So when I look at those two players, I see that Chubb is clearly the better running back. Now, do we know that yet? No. And I'll get to Chubb in a second. So there's a definite chance that Hyde wins this job, and Hyde is an early down guy. But Hyde doesn't really have a ceiling. He's on the Browns, and I know everyone likes to like the Browns, but touchdown upside, when we look at all their other players, it's not really there. In a good year with good touchdown luck, maybe he gets 8, but that's probably the max he's going to get. I'd put him below that. And what's the reception ceiling? Now, I'll talk about both of their receiving abilities when I get to Chubb, but they're both in 35th percentile. I mean, I'll say it right now. They're both 35th percentile receivers from college, and they already have Duke Johnson. So neither Chubb nor Hyde are going to have very significant role in the passing game. And I just think that if you have Hyde, who they just brought in a running back in the draft, and you don't have a reception ceiling, and you really don't have a touchdown ceiling, I don't see a 5th round ADP there. So for me, it's a pass on him at his current ADP. Again, that might change as we go throughout the summer. Duke Johnson is next. He's going as running back 36th in the 7th round. Duke has 10 career touchdowns over 3 full seasons, and he has yet to miss a game. Duke has been very durable. 10 total touchdowns over 3 full seasons. His most rushing yards ever in these 3 seasons is 379, and that will likely be higher than what he gets this year. He will get probably capped at like 300 rushing yards. There's no way they bring in Nick Chubb and Carlos Hyde and that Duke Johnson gets his career rushing numbers. Like, that's just not going to happen. He's not going to get carries. So we have a running back that's not going to get carries, that had some routes out of the slot. They tried it out early in the year and then they kind of shifted away, but you're still getting like 4 or 5 snaps out of the slot per week. Those will all go away. They brought in Jarvis Landry, and Duke's just not going to be in the slot. So he has no slot snaps. He has no rushing snaps. Now he's only in on 3rd downs, and I guarantee you Hyde's going to take some and Chubb's going to take some 3rd downs. So you have a player going in the 7th. So you have a guy that is essentially a 3rd down back with no touchdown upside, no rushing upside, and it just doesn't feel like a good situation. I want my guy to have upside, and he just has none and a pretty low floor. So for me, it's a pass on both of those guys. I have Hyde ranked significantly below ADP. I don't have Duke ranked significantly below the ADP. I would just say he's not someone that I'm targeting. Next guy we're going to talk about is Nick Chubb. So he's going as running back 41 in the mid-9th round. And for me, that's the best value of all of the running backs. I'm looking for value in my drafts, and I'm also looking for upside. They just drafted this guy in the early 2nd round. Yes, they gave Hyde a 3-year, $15 million contract, but they invested draft capital in this guy. They're going to use him. Do I think he has a higher ceiling than Hyde? Yes, but barely. So I'm not going to say that Chubb has a great ceiling. He's a much better athlete, 91st percentile burst score, 89th percentile speed score, 98th percentile SparkX score, but again, the 35th percentile college market share that both him and Hyde have, we know for a fact Duke Johnson will be the third down back. So Chubb might get in there a few times, not a bunch of touchdown ceiling, but going like probably it's going to be like 3 or 4 rounds after Hyde, I think that's a mistake. I think that you should be drafting Chubb where he's going and not Hyde. So that's kind of the outlook of the running backs. Again, no Duke or Hyde for me, but I'm fine with Chubb at his ADP, but none of them are really guys I'm going out and targeting. Shift to the wide receivers and the story changes a little bit. Josh Gordon, wide receiver 16. That's the early 4th round roughly right now. I don't see that changing too much unless there's like a major injury or some big news out of camp or he gets suspended again. But when you look at his stats, he had an awful catch percentage last year. But when you look further at the stats, or if you watched any of the games, it was basically the targets going to him were literally impossible to catch. Just impossible. I mean, so many times he was targeted deep and the ball was a good 10 yards away from him. Counts as a target, but does it? Like, is it really a target that was catchable? So, if you look at the times that he was targeted 20 or more yards downfield, he played 5 games last season. If you don't remember, he came in late. He played 5 games. He was targeted 16 times, 20 or more yards down the field. That's a massive amount. Only 5 of those 16 were deemed catchable. So 16 times he was targeted 20 or more yards down the field. 5 of those times he even had a chance to catch the ball. He caught all of them for 177 and a touchdown. So if it was possible for him to catch it, he did. Now we're going to have more improved quarterback play in either Tyrod or Mayfield. I believe they start the year with Tyrod. I believe that they ideally would finish the year with Tyrod. It depends on their record. If they start off 1-5, they're going to switch to Mayfield. But ideally, they'd like to start Tyrod for the whole season and then bring in Mayfield next season. But I don't think it cares. This dude has literally just never had someone that's good throwing him the ball. And I believe Tyrod is a very good quarterback. We don't know about Mayfield, but I would guess that he's good given where they drafted him. Rookie year, 805 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. Sophomore year, 1,650 yards, 9 touchdowns. That's it. That's all we get for a sample from Josh Gordon. We know that he is an elite talent. We know that he's still in shape. We saw last season he's still got that upside to just destroy people deep. I like the pick. I think it's an excellent pick where he's going. I'm extremely confident he'll be worth the pick if he doesn't get suspended. There's that obvious risk, which is why he's not going super high. But the 4th round, that's just nuts to me. I think that's a great value. I have him as wide receiver 10. He's going as wide receiver 16. Good value. Next, Jarvis Landry, and really that's the only other wide receiver we're going to talk about. I'll briefly touch on Corey Coleman, but you're only drafting Josh Gordon and Jarvis Landry. Landry, wide receiver 24, early 5th round, and this is in PPR and standard. It's going later. I don't think it's a lot later, but it is later for obvious reasons. Landry, not a ton of touchdown upside, but he's also on a new offense, so it's possible that they see some packages they really like near the goal line. We don't know that, but historically he hasn't been a massive touchdown guy. But it doesn't matter because he's a PPR monster, and we know that this offense, it runs routes out of the slot. Rashard Higgins, that's who he's competing with. Rashard Higgins led the league in slot snaps last season by 24. So he had 24 more slot snaps than any other wide receiver. 57 more than Landry did. Give those to Landry, and he's got a lot of receptions. Landry had the 2nd lowest drop rate out of the slot last season. So of all of their snaps, just counting the slot snaps, he had about a 1% drop rate, 2nd lowest in the league. There was one person who had a 0% drop rate. And how about this? Let me know in the comment section down below who you think number 1 guy is. So who do you think out of the slot had a 0% catch rate? They had at least 35 targets, and yes, this person is fantasy relevant. I'll give you another hint. They're going in roughly the middle rounds. I won't clarify middle, just roughly the early to middle rounds. Who do you guys think it is? Back to Landry. Just to sum it all up, They can't feed everyone, so it's not like I think that Landry and Josh Gordon are both finishing in the top 5 or something, and that the Browns are making the playoffs and yay, they're finally amazing. No, but I think that even if Gordon has a great year, I think the PPR receptions are going to be there for Landry, and I think that he's safe. I do not think that he busts. I don't think there's a chance that he busts. And when we look in the 5th round, historically, that's where your talent starts to drop off significantly, and that's when the percent of picks massively drops off to where a much lower percent of your picks actually hit when you look back at the end of the season is the 5th round and then massively into the 6th round. I think that if you hit in the 5th round with at least a solid wide receiver 2, that's very beneficial, so I like the pick. Rest of the wide receivers, I mentioned Rashard Higgins, he's basically done now. Landry's going to take all the slot snaps, and Coleman, he was just awful. 3rd worst yards after the catch per reception last year. He was the 100th rated wide receiver on Pro Football Focus. I mean, like, he's a great athletic talent, but he's been really bad, and he's been injury prone, and it's not a guy you need to draft. Could he do something? Absolutely. I mean, he's got the physical gifts too, and if Josh Gordon gets suspended again, he could. But he's not someone you have to draft. He's not being drafted, so just keep the name in mind, but don't go after him. Tight ends, it's just Njoku. That's the only one. I think his value's fine. Tight end 15th, 13th round. I'm perfectly comfortable where he's being drafted. Athletic profile is stunning on this guy, but we have seen that does not always translate, especially for tight ends. Tight ends, you can have a great profile, but it just doesn't always translate into the NFL. He's a guy that you can draft late, and if it's week 4 and he's not doing anything, just dump him for whoever the waiver wire guy is. But he's a guy you can perfectly feel comfortable with taking a shot on. Just know that he doesn't have the touchdown upside that, like, the Jimmy Grahams and the Kyle Rudolphs and the Gronks, Kelce's are. He doesn't have that just because he's on the Browns and he's not the first option. So don't think that he does. But I'm perfectly fine with the pick. It's a 13th round pick. That's, like, generally speaking, the 2nd to last pick or 3rd to last pick, depending on your bench size. So I'm fine with him there. Quarterbacks, you don't have to draft Tyrod or Mayfield. Obviously, you don't have to draft Mayfield. If you're in a 2-quarterback league, I think that Tyrod's a good pick. I think that he starts the season. If Mayfield starts the season, I think he's a fine pick as well in a 2-quarterback league. But we only draft 1 quarterback here, and you just don't have to, given the amount of talent at the quarterback position this season. You can wait till basically the end of the draft and get someone better than Tyrod, although I think he'll be good, and he's got rushing numbers, which you've heard me say a lot is very, very important for a quarterback. I don't think you have to. His quarterback 23, typically, like 16, 17 get drafted anyways, so not worth it. And remember, we're targeting Winston, Mahomes, Mariota, whichever one of those 3 you prefer the most, that's the one I think you should be drafting. So that's it. That's it from these guys. Also just wanted to mention quickly, I don't think it matters. Don't think that, like, if you really like Tyrod, that if they all of a sudden announce Mayfield is the quarterback, or you think that mid-season maybe it's going to be Mayfield, I don't think that changes anything. Everything I just went over would be if Tyrod's a quarterback or if Mayfield's a quarterback. I don't think that there's much of a difference between them when you talk about translation into the success of their surrounding parts. Don't think it changes. So, now we're going to talk about the video idea. It's going to be called roughly going to be called, I haven't named it yet, but how to improve your draft. And you guys love posting your mock drafts in the comment section, and it's tough to get to all of them because sometimes there's a lot, and I don't want to break down every single one of them. I'd rather be making these videos. So this is going to be the idea. You guys are going to send in your mock drafts, and I'm going to create like a Gmail or something in the description below that you can email it to. I'll keep reminding you guys as that comes up. It's going to be a once a week kind of thing. And basically you just email in your mock draft, and I'm going to break down what I would have done, or just kind of look at what could have happened. Remember, we don't like to look back at things and say, well, should have done this because this happened. That's just hindsight bias. Like, obviously, if I had known a certain player wouldn't have been drafted, I would have waited. But sometimes it's good to look over that and say, okay, you drafted him here, but 6 rounds later there was similar talent. So it is important to look back and see if week after week we're seeing these trends that we should have waited in certain positions, or we should have acted earlier in certain positions. That's valuable. So it's not going to be super hindsight bias. It's just going to be looking at what could we have done differently to improve the team. I don't know how many I'm going to do each week. It depends how long it takes to break them down. Maybe we can get like 2 or 3 in, but I have no idea how long it's going to take. So make sure to send those in. Again, I'll create the Gmail and I'll link it in the description box. You're going to have to send in like the whole draft. You can't just send me your team because then I don't know where everyone else went. You're going to have to send the draft board. So whatever site you use, I like SleeperBot, I like Fantasy Football Calculator and Fantasy Pros. I don't know that on Fantasy, yeah, they do send at the end. I think at the end on Fantasy Pros it shows you the draft board, but I know on the other 2 it does. So preferably use SleeperBot or Fantasy Football Calculator and show me the draft board at the end, and obviously make it clear which team is yours. So that is the end of this video. Hope you guys did enjoyed. If you did, how about you hit that like button? Remember to subscribe if you are new, and thanks for watching.